electric trucks. And there are a lot of challenges that one faces, but hopefully a lot of solutions. And I really want to look at both those things today. We're excited to be here with NJCCC. It's a great organization, wonderful charter and mission, and the work you do is fantastic. So we're really excited to be working with you and look forward to working more closely with you. So the question is, with fleets of electric vehicles arriving, are you ready? Now, I always like to look also at the history of electric vehicles as well. And New Jersey has a long and storied history with electric vehicles. Next. Okay. So with that, now if we look back, 100 years ago, 1889, Andrew Riker actually formed the first electric vehicle company in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Right, so it wasn't the first one in the country, but it was the first one in New Jersey. And he had been making electric vehicles for some time at the point where he actually opened up his factory there in New Jersey. Next. So back a couple years before that, there was actually the first oval track race, the horseless carriage race, as they talked about. And this was a race with a couple of electric vehicles and a lot of gas vehicles. As you see here, Andrew Riker won that in his electric vehicle, being a long-time aficionado both of regular vehicles and electric vehicles. So again, first oval track race in the U.S. won by an electric vehicle. Next. And just a few years later, the American Automobile Club of America did its first road race. 5 gasoline cars, 3 steam cars, because steam was still, it had come from steam trains, so they were considering how to do it with cars, and 1 electric car. And the question is, can you guess who won that race? If you go to the next slide, of course, Andrew Riker won that race in his electric car. Only 1 of the steam cars actually made it across the finish line, and he beat all 5 gas cars. So, the boy from New Jersey had a lot going for him in bringing electric into the world very early on. But even here, he wasn't finished. If you go to the next slide. A year later, he set the world speed record of 0 to 60 miles an hour in one of the vehicles he made out of New Jersey. And that was in a very fast 63 seconds. My Tesla does 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, so a little bit faster than him, but it was, at the time, the world record in an electric car made in New Jersey. Next. So very brief background on our company. Pioneer Power Solutions has been around 30 years. We're headquartered in New Jersey. We build transformers, switchgear, powerhouses, automatic transfer switches. We actually do all the backup power for all the Target stores nationwide. So we've been doing power a long time. And then in 2020, we came out with a new division called E-Block that actually does, it's the heart of the microgrid. It's the battery energy storage system, the switchgear, all on a skid that can be dropped down to enable facilities that are adding large amounts of electric vehicles, the ability to not have to do a forklift upgrade of their switchgear. And then E-Boost, which is off-grid electric vehicle charging, which we'll look at today. Next. All right. So if we look at some of the challenges that we face, there are really 3 challenges with getting our fleet of electric vehicles in place. The first and probably the strongest is just delay in infrastructure. What do you do if you talk to the utility and they tell you, it's going to be a year before you can get a transformer, or it's going to be a year and a half till you can get switchgear. Heaven forbid you are taking enough power that you're the tipping point requiring a new substation, you're 5 years out. So delaying infrastructure is a challenge, and it's a double challenge because a lot of municipalities, for instance, and school districts are getting grants for electric school buses, electric city buses, and even electric fleets where they have to use the vehicles within a certain amount of time of getting them. And if the infrastructure is delayed, how are you going to use your vehicle? Another is that a lot of these fleets, these last mile delivery fleets, actually are on leased land, and they can't put on permanent infrastructure. And then the last part of that is resiliency after the grid is connected, right? What happens if now all your vehicles are electric and the grid goes down? What do you do? So that's problem number one. Next, problem number two is, what if you're just in a very rural area that doesn't have sufficient power? We work with a lot of organizations. I mean, an extreme example is the work we're doing up in British Columbia in Canada, and 20 hours north of Vancouver, which is about 100 miles south of the Northwest Territory. For part of their NEVI infrastructure, we're putting in multiple units that will be able to charge electric vehicles, something that, again, there isn't power to do that. Next slide. And the next one is simply concern about incident response. What happens when a hurricane comes through? In this example, how do you get 120 Teslas off the Florida Keys and charge them up? They weren't charged the night before. So three areas that are challenges with electric vehicles. But hopefully we have a solution or solutions that can help out. Next. So what I want to look at with you today is what we call off-grid electric vehicle charging. Right? So it's its ability to charge an electric truck, an electric car, electric bus, all using off-grid power. So what you see here is an e-boost, and it's going to give us a boost. It's actually designed for last-mile delivery fleets, where if they had four delivery vans that needed charging overnight, or maybe they had some Class 8 tractors. So here you see a Class 8 tractor being charged on a fast charger. Next step. And what I want to do is look at a unit. So this is a rendering, of course, very similar to the one we just saw. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull off the cover and we'll look inside. Next. So what do we see inside this unit? So looking inside, next, we'll see that there are some very typical components. Now, this unit itself is a single example. It seems that as many customers there are, they have different requests. So this one happens to have a 60 kilowatt fast charger in there. If it's an electric school bus, it may be one that has a route that takes them longer than the battery will handle for a full day. So they may need to come midday and do an opportunity charge. This one also happens to have 6 level 2 chargers. So it could charge 6 school buses, 6 last mile delivery vans overnight. We always pair that then with some kind of a generator. In this case, it's a propane generator running either propane or renewable propane. And I'm going to get in a lot into renewable propane in a minute, given its very low carbon intensity. And then we'll also have propane on board to make it very, very mobile. Next. Now, because we are oftentimes very remote, what we do is we actually have something called eBoost Realm on top. So it's actually monitoring in real time, monitoring the charger for its up-down status, monitoring the generator when it needs servicing, monitoring propane levels to actually ping the local propane marketer to come in and refill them when necessary. The idea is that these units should be able to sit there for 6 months, a year, multiple years, and just charge. We have an LTE mesh on it. Again, it just gives us the ability to monitor what's happening on board, and also proactively, if we need to proactively come in and assess something, we can do that. On units that are very, very remote, like the ones I alluded to in northern British Columbia, we actually use satellite communication. You'll see solar panels on board. Again, we're a big believer in renewables. The parasitic loads are not for the charging process. It's actually for the parasitic loads. It keeps the charger alive, the screen alive, when the system is otherwise off. And then lighting, security cameras, because we never know where we're going to put them. Next. So we do have units in New Jersey as well. This is eBoost over at the Port Authority in New York, New Jersey, charging up a New Flyer electric bus. Over in Jersey City, we have a unit that is actually charging ZEVX shuttle buses. So they found that the bus themselves, the shuttle buses, had routes that were longer than would be handled from a single charge during the day. And what they'll do is we are stop number 3 on the route, and they'll come in, do opportunity charging, and then continue their route along. So we're seeing the use of these across the country. Again, when people are getting electric vehicles, oftentimes they're getting the electric vehicles months or years before permanent infrastructure is available. Next. So diving a little deeper, we look at eBoost Realm again, monitoring the chargers, the generator, the fuel. In remote locations, we can provide local internet, but a lot use it also for data analytics and fleet planning. It's one thing to get your electric vehicle and say, I read the data sheet and it says that I have enough distance to go my route. We're working with an electric trucking company where the round trip route between where they drop off the Class 8 truck, where they pick up, drop off, and come back, they are 10 miles short on their battery. So we'll be putting in a remote charging station halfway through so they can get the top off. We work with propane dealers across the country, again, to be able to provide whatever fuel people need. And service itself is critical to us. For us, being in power generation for the last 30 years, I mean, we're the guys that get called by a hospital Christmas Eve, close to midnight saying, our power went out. We need our generator running. So service is key. We actually provide augmented reality glasses with these units so that if someone's on site, they can immediately put them on. Our tech team of experts can see and diagnose things very rapidly. It tends, frequently, say 8 out of 10 issues tend to be an operator error issue. Next. So, like Chuck said, and any fuel is, as long as it's, not gas and diesel. We believe the same thing, right? What renewables can we use today to help accelerate EV adoption and drive towards that march towards net zero? So we use propane for a number of reasons. It's low cost, easy to transport, readily available. We use it to barbecue, right? Every house in America has access to propane. Next, batteries are great, no doubt, but they do require being reconnected to the grid at some point. So we're coming out with units that have a battery interface, and then those big batteries are recharged off hours by the propane generator. So think about Hollywood. They may be on site for 4 months at a time. They want it silent when they are filming, thus the battery, but because they need to be on for 4 months, they'll use the propane to refill it. We're saying the same thing for construction sites as well. We've been talking about hydrogen for 20 years, and it seems for the last 20 years, it's the perfect solution 10 years in the future. And it seems that way still, right? And eventually it'll get there, and we're a big believer in it as well. For us, it's about being able to provide power and recharge vehicles, again, with something that's low cost and low carbon intensity. Next. So a little bit about carbon intensity and sustainability. Again, for us, it's about a march to net zero. It's not just a drop off to net zero. If we look at the U.S. grid in general, it actually has a relatively high carbon intensity, 140. That is because it's only a fifth renewables overall. It's about a fifth nuclear, about 2/5 natural gas, and a fifth coal. As we can see here, cleaner grids, people often talk about the California grid. Most days, it's about a 93 carbon intensity. This is because most days aren't completely sunny, partly cloudy, and not necessarily windy. Propane, green fuel, cleaner than the grid in 38 states. Next. Now, on a nice day, a sunny day that is also windy, California's renewables kick in. And again, we are big fans of using renewables whenever possible. But in parallel to that, now available, coming out of Southern California and available up in Oregon and Washington is renewable propane. It's coming out of Louisiana and available up through the East Coast up to Maine. And renewable propane is cleaner than the grid in 49 states. It is made from bio-waste or biomatter. And bio-waste, you think about used cooking oil, for instance. Biomatter, a lot of it comes from soy. Soy, about 80% of soy is protein used for food. That leaves about 20% chaff that can be, basically it's waste that can be squeezed, creating oil that is then made into renewable propane. And then the next part is RDME, renewable dimethyl ether. And this is an additive. You add it 20% by weight, 15% by volume, and it actually has a negative carbon intensity. So when you put that in with renewable propane, you're getting really close to a net zero carbon intensity. Now, Texas, not to be outdone, is now coming out with something called flare liquid. And what this is, if you've ever driven by a natural gas site, you'll see that there are pipes with flares that are burning. They're burning off the excess natural gas. Because the natural gas that is sold actually has to include in the carbon intensity of that flare that's burned off. If you're able to capture the flare before it's burned, you actually have a net negative carbon intensity fuel source. And they're now providing that inside of Texas. Next. So for us, it's important to not do what we call cliff diving to decarbonization, right? Not waiting till hydrogen is available everywhere to do it. Not waiting until your utility is 100% renewable and then doing it. It's about doing what you can today to improve the environment and improving it as new and additional options become available. So, starting out with propane, again, it's going to drop the carbon intensity by 70%. You now go to renewable propane, you're now at 20%. You add an RDME, you're close to zero. Now you can do that very quickly as time goes on and get the benefits of the grants from the vehicles, LCFS credits, carbon credits as you go through. And again, as the state grids get lower carbon intensity, that can match up to what's being done otherwise. And at that point, switch over to pure electric and life becomes very good. Next. So we've charged over 9,000 vehicles, electric vehicles. We've actually produced over 280 megawatt hours of off-grid energy. Because we are a mobile system as well, we are oftentimes the first time a charger type is connected up to an electric vehicle. So there's a lot of compatibility testing we're involved in as well. But as you can see, if it's a major manufacturer of electric vehicles, we've probably charged it multiple times already. Next. And that also shows the breadth of the number of different kinds of vehicles that are now available, right? Because that list had vehicles, everything from your cars to your last mile delivery vans, all the way up to Class 8 tractors. We see here some photos of different types of units, everything from a skid to a trailer to a pod to a truck. The e-Boost GOAT generator on a truck is kind of your AAA model. If someone has a large fleet, if a vehicle stops due to the battery getting low, you can bring the vehicle over and recharge it. Systems have power anywhere from 30 kilowatts of power to 360 kilowatts of power. And from an energy source, we can provide off-grid energy without refilling anywhere from 700 kilowatts up to 75 kilowatt hours to 75 megawatt hours of off-grid power. So that's a lot of powering between refilling. And whether it's a dozen level 2s for school buses, or it's 4 to 6 DC fast chargers for Class 8 trucks, and any and all electric vehicles can be charged off-grid. Next. So I just want to show out in the wild what are some of the units out there. Upper left is one of the earlier ones I showed you. It's used by Merchants Fleet. They're a fleet management company. They've committed to 40,000 electric vehicles and realized that to lease electric vehicles, especially to companies that are in leased land, you often have to lease infrastructure. Upper right, we're charging a Mack electric garbage truck. So again, everything is going electric. I was talking to the refuse manager at one of the major cities that had brought in the electric Mack trucks. And he said now that every driver wants to be driving those, and they have races now to see who can finish their routes faster, the electric guys or the gas guys or diesel guys. Clearly the electric guys are winning, but they enjoy that. Lower left is a larger mobile unit. It's 240 kilowatts of power. The charger in the back actually is on a Tommy lift, so it can actually drop down to ground level once it's stopped. And then the right, we see the e-Boost GOAT. What I thought was interesting is we were at an event, and people brought their electric trucks. It turns out none of the chargers at that facility were working, so we were charging all night for some of the electric trucks. And even the Orlando Utility Commission needed a charge, as you can see here, before they headed home. Next. Then a couple more units. Upper left, there's a Vietnamese car company, VinFast. They're importing cars, and when their vessel arrives in the port of Benicia in California, they'll offload 1,000 to 3,000 electric vehicles. They're at a 20% state of charge because that's what's legal to be done, to be used in transport. And then they will use 2 of these units. They will charge 12 cars at a time, 14 hours a day, until they get them all charged and off to customers. Upper right is, again, that AAA model. Lower left is a unit I showed earlier charging the Port Authority. And upper right is a Skid International and their IC bus. Actually, OEMs our units and provides them to their vendors, their dealers, because the dealers need to provide power to their potential customers as they are trying out electric vehicles. Next. And here are some school bus solutions as well. So in this case, this is a unit that can charge 8 school buses simultaneously. It's actually extensible using some power management to up to 16 electric buses. And, we're seeing that more and more where a lot of the school systems just don't have sufficient power to charge the electric vehicles. But there is no better use for an electric vehicle than a school bus, right? Because now it's clean for the children and what they're breathing every day. They're quiet. I was down in South Carolina last year, and we were on a drag strip and we were racing electric vehicles. I was part of an event, and we were looking at the quarter mile and half mile for electric police cars, electric dump trucks, and electric school buses. And I'll tell you that the best salesperson I ever met was the driver of that electric school bus, because she'd been working, driving regular buses, diesel buses, for decades, and said it was the first time she could actually communicate with her students because it's so quiet. Next. And with that, we come to an end of what I have to talk about, although I could go on for hours and would love to do it. Love to open it up for Q&A if there are any questions.
Thanks, Scott. I see a question from Jenny Ludmer with Sustainable Jersey. Jenny, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, sure. I am actually from Sustainable Princeton. That's a point of confusion for a lot of people, so no worries. So this does seem like a great solution to a lot of the challenges that you mentioned. I'm curious about the financial models. And could you just speak to that a little bit in terms of do you lease them? Is there a per use charge, or just how does that work?
Right. No, absolutely critical, right? The financial model is a key part. So we sell them and we lease them. Some places want to buy them because they realize it's such a long time they're going to get permanent power. Also, for instance, out here at one of the municipalities, they're buying it because they're going to use it until they get permanent infrastructure. They're going to use it as resiliency for the system, and they're actually going to remove the diesel generator from their facility and use it to back up the facility as well. That being said, a lot of groups are saying, look, I'm going to have power in 6 months, a year. I'd like to lease it, and we do that too.
Thanks.
Great question.
Anyone else?
This is Dan from Easy Ride. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, we hear you, Stan.
Okay, I have a question, and thank you. That was an awesome presentation. I really liked it. And I also like how you stressed out the importance of being incremental in improving the carbon footprint and adopting the technology that we have today, as opposed to trying to wait for some miracle. I have a question regarding the renewable LPG. I didn't hear much about it before. Do you have life cycle analysis for using LPG, renewable, and also plugging in the dimethyl ether? I thought it was also very interesting. Because if it's bio-based, how much land do we need to grow all of that?
Right. No, great question. So we work with PERC, which is the Propane Energy Council, and they have good data on propane versus renewable propane, all of that. What's interesting is that we are, so the two ways of getting renewable propane, one is bio waste, right? So it's like used cooking oil, etc. And that's in existence already, right? So there's nothing new being made for it. When we talk about the soy part, the soy is actually it's a waste product of the soy that's made for food usage, right? So it's already being grown for food. 80% of that soy, again, is used as protein, and it's the waste material that then gets compressed and made into an oil. And I'd love to follow up and talk to you more about more of the details on it, and can also put you in touch with the folks at the Propane Energy Resource Council, because it's only been out a few years, but it's very rapidly. Clearly, it started in California, CARB. It moved up the West Coast to the CARB states there, and then up the East Coast to the CARB states here. So there are about 13 states using it right now, and it continues to, the use of it continues to expand. And again, because it has such a low carbon intensity compared to anything else out there. The RDME, renewable dimethyl ether, is something that's much newer, and we're working with the organizations now that are bringing it out to analyze, and he's got basically doing long-term test analysis because for us we do a lot of power, been doing it for a long time, and can provide valuable data to the groups that are bringing in the RDME and assessing what the optimal mix is of RDME with renewable propane. Great question.
And Steve, we'd be happy to hook you up with some other resources about renewable propane and DME as well.
That's great. I'd love to see those as well, Chuck. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Caroline, when we send out the slides to the attendees, we can attach some resources, some links.
Great idea.
Okay, anyone else? Brian, you trying to say something?
No, thank you, but I thought it was a good presentation.
All right, good. Well, thank you, Scott, and thank you, everybody, for participating today. I hope you found this useful and interesting. And if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll make sure they get answered. And stay tuned. We do have a whole bunch of events coming up over the next several weeks and months. If you visit our website at njcleancities.org, there is an events page. Please check it out. There's lots of activities, lots of different types of activities going on. So we encourage you to check that out and participate as you can. And I think with that, unless there's any other last minute questions, we'll give you your lunchtime back and let you get on with your day. So thank you all for participating.
Very good.
Everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for organizing. Great topic.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See you guys.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Charlie.
Have a great day.